Your hips, your thighs, love the way you call me baby. Welcome to ScapeChatz, episode 16. This week we're talking another 2 episodes of Farscape. In this case, we're talking season 2, episode 7, Home on the Remains, and we're talking season 2, episode 8, Dream a Little Dream. I should say right now that I'm here with Majan live and in person this week.
Woo,
I'm thrilled to see you, buddy.
Man.
Oh my god. We're in the same room. I can touch him. He's got all this hair.
Oh boy.
We're watching Farscape, or we did.
We did, yeah.
First up, right off the bat, is Home on the Remains, which was written by Gabrielle Stanton and Harry Worksman Jr. Great names. Harry Worksman. And directed by my boy Rowan Woods.
Oh, so a classic Farscape director guy.
Sure. And it originally aired June 16th, 2000.
Hmm.
John, what happened?
What happened?
What happened to Farscape?
Good question. We talked a lot of smack last week about Picture If You Will.
Yep.
I don't think it is any more the worst episode of this season so far. I think it is among the worst. And this episode gave it a run for its money.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the problem with this episode isn't only that it's... I don't even know where to start. It's, like, confusing, and some of the visual design is completely off base. But I was telling you while I was watching it that I felt like it was more bad in the interesting way, the way that early Buffy is bad in an interesting way. Because you're seeing all these visuals, and, like, the first... aesthetic that came to mind to me was weirdly the Super Mario Brothers live action movie, which if people haven't seen it is like the craziest thing ever made. It's just a nightmare land of underground pipes and fire worlds and all this crazy stuff. And yeah, the whole like time during this episode, it took me a while to figure out what was it going on other than we need to find food for Zan, and then she gets like a weird spore face, and it just goes completely nuts.
There's a lot going on conceptually in this episode that doesn't all line up and jibe together, because you have the spore stuff, you have the mining stuff, you have like a monster in the cave going on, and then all of Chiana's like past is also playing into it. It's just there are too many things that this episode's trying to do at once, and they're all weird.
Yes,
simultaneously.
And what's also weird is that it starts really simply, because it's just we're running out of food. It's a very classic way to start a sci-fi episode of pure people, isolated anywhere. And we need to go to the nearest planet to find food. And who goes down? It's Dargo, Rigel, Chiana, and John.
Yes, that's correct.
Which is a pretty large team.
It is a large team.
And it's one we haven't seen necessarily before. And everyone kind of goes off on their own. And the main issue, and the reason that they need to find food ASAP, is that Zan, we've learned, when she gets really hungry, grows Fruit Loops on her face.
Right.
Which is weird.
So the thing about this plot, Farscape has not yet done an episode where it's like, we need food.
Right.
Food has kind of played into it before. Maybe only in Crackers Don't Matter that I'm thinking of, in terms of like, we need to buy food.
Mm-hmm.
But they have had food in the past. So it's interesting to see them for the first time strapped for resources, because I think that's new for this show, and it adds to the idea that they're former prisoners on the run, and we don't get that sort of tension very often, so I liked that aspect of it. But the way that Zan phrases what she says before it cuts to the titles is, she's like, I need food or I'll die, and it's like, yeah, we need food.
That's
or
how that works.
We will die. It's just life.
It's another awkward, like, the fake tension thing that we always talk about with Farscape Season 1. Like, we thought that they kind of got over that awkwardness of we need to do something this week or else, oh god, everyone's screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of escalates from there. And once everybody is going down to the planet, Chiana says, I think she said she knew an old friend down there, and she wanted to, like, dress in a provocative way to, like, potentially seduce some people.
Which just looked like her normal clothes.
I wrote here, don't pretend that Chiana's new outfit is any more or less chesty than her old outfit.
It's the same outfit, except without the, like, frilly scarf part.
Her other one's like a cheat outfit. This one's just slightly darker and doesn't have the weird scar.
It looked less revealing.
Yes, exactly. She's like, oh, maybe this will get him. This is a new thing.
And all the guys are like, ooh, all right.
Yeah.
And Aaron's like, yeah, you just want to go play with your favorite toys or something. She said something like that.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I think she was saying that to Crichton or something.
Yeah, it was weird.
We continue to get Chiana being weird with all that stuff.
Yeah. A couple things that I liked in the opening, like 3 little pieces of, or one of them wasn't in the opening, but just we have another example of John saying something and then people repeating it because they don't understand what he's saying.
Right.
So he's like, "Oh, I need some chicken soup," and Chiana says, "I don't know what chicken soup is," but
translator micro.
Yeah, that's the best that we got this week. And then also the Dentics make their return for the first time since the pilot.
Oh yeah, he's trying to cook food.
Yeah,
he's like, I got these. I wanted that. I find the Dentics a really fascinating concept.
Yeah,
I love that. And they're like, oh, we're gonna fry them, and they're all like, you can't. That doesn't work. You can't just like put food on the fryer. He's like, you can fry. He just goes full Southern whenever he cooks. I noticed that in this episode. Whenever it's about food, at the beginning and end of this episode, when Crichton is cooking, he goes from like rational protagonist to like dumb Southern hick immediately. It's ridiculous. He's like, no, if you fry it, it's edible. And he takes a bite of it, and he's like, not edible. Confirmed. And the Dentics, for those that don't remember, are the worms that make your teeth clean.
Yeah, you put it in your mouth and they
eat all the gross.
Which I think we only saw. It was either the pilot or the second episode.
Yeah, I think it was one of those two.
Yeah, and then the other thing I liked is that John and Dargo were allergic to Zan, which is something that we've never seen dealt with before.
Yeah.
Space allergies. It doesn't really mean anything, but it's just another example of her being a plant and that being weird. And you don't really see diseases that often in space, except for like, oh no, it's a crazy virus.
That's going to turn us on to zombies.
Yeah,
or whatever.
but this is just, our noses are irritated by your spores.
Yes. And so they leave because they're all allergic. Oh, did you have more opening stuff?
No.
And they leave and they get onto the planet. And this is the part where the plot kind of got... The problem is that it splits off very quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't stay together as a group for very long. So, John and Dargo are like, oh, we're going to go find food in the market somewhere. Rigel sees some people playing a game of something.
Some kind of gambling thing.
Is it? Do you know if it's the same game that was in that other episode?
It looked similar, the one from the Flax.
Yes, correct.
It looked similar because there's like stacks of things and you move them with a stick. So I think it was meant to be the same game. And
the guy's like, yeah, I'll introduce you to them, which is nice. Mm-hmm. But did that pan out much?
No, I was hoping when we first saw that, I was excited because it's like, okay, Rigel's going to get a plot where he can be cool, like a gambling plot. But we see him say, oh, that cool table over there, I'm going to go to it. And then the next time we see him, he's already like lost a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And he has to go find a way to repay the guy. So he just goes into the mines and starts picking away with his thing that doesn't look like it can break rocks at all.
It looks like he's just hitting it with like a glove or something.
Yeah.
Like a hard piece of something. And then
so
where it gets hazy.
Yeah, so basically the gist of this place that they are
the Budong.
Is that what the place is called?
That's what it says here.
So apparently there's a giant corpse in space of some monster, some giant monster, and inside it there's like pustules that make gems or something.
Oh, that's so weird. I didn't even pick up on that.
And so the idea is that it's this big mining colony where people are mining for these gems, and it's run by this dude who looks like he took too many seconds to outsmart a Bond villain.
Because yes, he's got like a partly
he's got a
split
big
head.
gouge in his head.
Is that not the whole race of people there?
It was him and his brother. I think everybody else looked like humans.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
or just like slightly different versions of normal people.
Was that wasn't Temin, was it, or was that Basog or Kidva? God, there's so many names.
I think Basog is him, and the Kidva is the monster.
Kidva, you're right. You got that.
So anyway, this is some.
Temin is the guy who like dies in the attack at the beginning of the episode.
His brother, or no. And
that's Chiana's friend, so that's kind of her emotional attachment to this planet.
Yes. So basically, this is a mining colony where they're looking for these rocks. Chiana used to live here with her brother.
Yep.
But then she and her brother left, and they stole a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
So she's coming back with her tail between her legs, trying to get them to help her eat and that sort of thing.
Right.
And she's using her feminine wiles to do it, because that's what Chiana does, I guess.
Correct.
And meanwhile, there's a monster in the mines.
The Kidva.
The Kidva. And it has recently killed this guy's brother. Mm-hmm. So he's shutting down the mines. Nobody can go in there.
Okay.
Because we got to take care of this monster.
Which means that they don't have money, which, like, though you really have to keep, like, extrapolating why does this mean that we can't get food?
Right. Because he is willing to give them enough food for them for a meal, but he won't give them enough food, and he definitely won't give them meat to store and keep them until they get to the next planet.
Right.
Because this guy's weirdly draconian and arbitrary. He is like, yeah, I'll be nice enough to give you some fungus, and then they complain, they're like, we want some meat, and he's like, no, you got to work for it, you got to get me gems. And it's like, we can't because the mine's closed. What if we just trade you? Like, we have medical supplies, we have weapons, and he's like, no, gems. And it's like, that doesn't make sense that he would be that difficult.
He almost feels like a quest giver, where it's like, I can get the thing, it's right there, just give me a little bit of it, I'll give you I have like credits or whatever, and he's like, no, you gotta go collect 5 gem crystals and then slay 5 boars in the mines before you can get this.
And then at one point Dargo tries to threaten him.
Yep, which is a bad idea.
And you can't threaten me because I hid all the meat in the mines. That's where all the meat is, and I'm the only one who knows where it is. And it's like, okay,
arbitrary.
Don't put the meat there. And then Chiana tries to basically exchange sex for whatever. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea.
But we can't do this once.
Chiana's like, Dargo, just let me be with him for a night. And he's like, oh, a night? No. We're talking life for a life. I get you forever.
That's a cool line, actually.
It's cool in the sense that it's like intractably villainous.
Yeah.
You can't reason with that. So basically the Moya crew is having to go through this whole rigmarole to get food.
Yeah.
Because at this point Zan needs animal protein. She's so far gone in her weird death phase. Right,
because they go back up briefly, and they give her, this is just the meanwhile, they go back up, they give her, like, the little green crunchy food, and she's like, no. I hated that scene, because it's another example of, like, fake dramatic tension, where I'm like, it's been 10 minutes, and they got her food. This is not how this works.
Yeah.
And her arbitrary rule of, I need meat. I need, I need animal. She goes like animal proteins is what makes me better. It's like, of course, now we're going to go back down. And then we also find out that, what's the thing? She's like now spreading spores, or is that later?
I think she starts spreading spores at the beginning, but it gets progressively worse and worse.
So we'll come back to
We'll talk about her plot in a second. So they have to go through all this trouble to get this guy to give them food. Meanwhile, Chiana meets up with somebody that she used to know on this mining colony, some lady.
Altana.
And Altana's like, I found this big score of special gems.
Nigelti crystals.
Thank you. Nigelti crystals. And there's enough of them that I can get off this place and go start a new life somewhere else. And I want you to have a share of them. But the problem is the mines are closed, and the dude Basag probably knows that I found them, and he wants to take them for himself.
Yes.
Is probably what's going on. So that's why he shut down the mines.
Okay.
So
much nonsense in this episode.
Yeah, it's all over the place, and then Chiana tries to get good with him. Dargo gets jealous and upset because they're really pushing that.
Every single time. There's the line here that I think you're referring to where she's like, you don't have to protect me, and like you're not. I had a brother. Like I know how this works. And then he's like, I don't want to be your brother.
Yeah.
And then I wrote, I don't want to be your brother. I want to be sedated. That's such a line. That's such one of those lines. Like, I don't want to be your brother. I want to be. And then she's like, what? Just say it. He's like, I don't know. It's just not that. And I'm like, oh.
Dargo is so weird about it because in that scene, she's like, what do you want to be? And he kind of turns away coyly, But then in the other scene, so eventually Dargo goes down into the mines with Altana. Is that what her name is?
Yeah. The lady who looks like the lady with the orange face from, oh my god, the eyeglasses episode. From Still the Blood.
Oh, yeah, she did look like...
Different actress. I looked like it. I looked it up.
Her name. What's her name?
We never remember it.
I know, but we looked it up.
And I forgot it again.
It's like Take, or like Score Lady, or Ransom. It's something like that.
I'll look it up while you keep going. How about that?
Yeah, she did look like that lady, and I thought it was that lady.
Different actress, so I checked.
Anyway, so Dargo agrees to go down with her into the mine to protect her from the monster, and they're gathering all these gems. And they start talking about Chiana, and she's like, Chiana's a good person, and Dargo's like, oh, she's kind of hard to trust. And then the lady asks, "Are you and Chiana together?" And Dargo says, "No." And she says, "No, or not yet." And then he says, "That's up for her to decide." And it's like, what? What do you never were like, "Hey, let's be together." And she's like, "I got to think about it."
And now you're a dope and you're lying again. You're just bad.
It's such a ridiculous.
If you remember that Dargo is
relationship.
Yeah, if you remember that Dargo is supposed to be like a 16-year-old in his culture, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does.
So he's like, "No, we're like maybe we're like kind of dating." It's weird. It's complicated.
It's just dumb.
And then is this the part we get into the mines?
Yeah, so he's with her in the mines, and also John goes into the mines at some point to go after Dargo and to go after Rigel, or he runs into Rigel by accident.
Who's just mining.
Yeah, and they both get attacked by this monster.
Is it John running into Rigel?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a scene where the weirdest physical comedy of the whole episode, where he's like, they're like jumping on top of each other to get away from the monster, and then he's like, "I'll bite your fingers off," and he's like, "No, don't! What are you doing?" And then he starts biting his fingers off.
Yeah.
And as soon as you remember that it's a puppet, that scene means nothing.
Right.
But then John's response is, as anyone would do, to bite Rigel's head.
His ear.
Or he's like, "Is this your ear?" And then he yells into it. I love that line. "Is this your ear?"
Yeah.
The lady...
Rigel kind of just nods like, yes.
That's the thing I use for that. By the way, quickly, the lady you were thinking of is Furlough.
Furlough. That's what it is.
That's a name that I've already forgotten it. That doesn't
Furlough.
But yeah.
Furlough. Yeah, so then Dargo's with the lady, and they get attacked by the Kidva, and the lady gets killed. Bummer. Then John decides to go back into the mines for some reason after that.
Yeah. That's what you do.
Yeah, Dargo got injured, and John just goes in to either find these gems or to
get rid of the thing, isn't it? To kill the Kidva.
Possibly. Yeah, that might be what it is.
The line literally just says, "Crichton is back in the mines."
So he goes back in.
He finds
the guy's there. Turns out Basag is the one controlling the Kidva with some kind of whistle or something. And then John fights it. And he finds an ingenious way to kill it with the gate crushed, like stabbing with the gate. That was kind of cool.
He lets it go like through the gate, and then it's like a sideways gate that closes on the thing's face.
Yeah. If that guy didn't look like an extra in the Broadway version of Tarzan, then maybe that would have been...
Are you talking about the Kidva?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was totally a dude in a suit.
He was just like a background ape.
Yeah. Ape number 11.
Right.
So the Kidva is now dead.
It's dead.
And now we're left to deal with Basag.
Yep. Chiana runs into him. She has a gun. She's like, "I'm going to shoot you." And he's like, "You would never shoot me in cold blood." And she's like, "You're right, I wouldn't." So instead she shoots a thing that like pours acid on him and melts him to death, which is way worse.
I was like, this is some Cronenberg shit. What happened? What did the show turn into?
That's like so much more brutal than just shooting him and killing him.
Exactly. She shot the guy's hand off, and then I said, "So Cronenberg," and then he goes, if I understood the line correctly, because the show sometimes has really bad audio quality, he goes, "You bitch! What do you do?" Because he's got this, and again, Farscape, all over the place accent.
Impossible to pin his accent.
"What do you do?" And then his hand is melting, and I kind of thought that was
I wrote that down as, "You bitch! What did you do?"
It's just so mumbly. And then he's dead, I guess.
Yeah, he's dead.
And then, okay, so we'll talk about the last scene, then we'll talk about the Aaron thing.
Yeah.
Or do you want to talk about the Aaron thing first?
Let's talk about the Aaron thing first.
Because there isn't a ton.
So the arc of that is that Aaron is trying to be the only decent person on the whole crew and help Zan. Did they ever say Zan? We say Zan a lot, but I don't think they ever do.
I think Crichton says it sometimes.
Sometimes.
I'm
going to keep switching back and forth because we have in the past.
Yes.
But I thought of it again and it bugged me.
Yep.
So she's the only decent person on this whole crew, helping Zan to get through the fact that she's dying and secreting spores. Zan is going crazy and turning like evil.
Paranoid, evil, violent.
Yeah.
Is this the part where she says, "You wanted to kill me"?
Yeah, she says that a lot, but it starts here.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron's just trying to calm her down and things like that. She tries at one point to shine a lot of light on Zan because she thinks that will give her sustenance or something. Yeah. And it just makes the spores worse and makes her angrier, which doesn't make sense.
No, yeah, the rules to those spores are stupid. Over time, it's just filling the whole ship. Mm-hmm. And then at one point I wrote here, I think I was trying to be funny because I was so uninterested in this episode. The spores over time are developing and they're numbing Moya's insides. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why didn't we have this when she was pregnant? That would have been so useful. She had a, what's the thing called when you, the drug they use for pregnant women? This is two straight males who have never had kids thinking about this.
Oh, why am I not? It's a, oh gosh.
Not a diuretic.
No, not that.
Not that. Epidural. Yes!
Thank you.
Yes!
Oh my god. That
10 points to Gryffindor.
That would have killed me.
Yes. It's basically...
Furlough.
No, I'm going to forget that. You can't make me remember that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, those spores essentially would have functioned as like a weird epidural. But I also don't know what part of Moya is like the birthing part.
Anyways, so the conflict here is that Zan's dying, and Pilot is saying, Aaron, this is a problem because Moya's going blind from these spores.
Interesting.
So we're going to have to do something about it. And Aaron is getting a cold.
She's just doing she's doing the like nasally voice.
She's getting an allergic reaction to it as well.
Yeah.
But she says, okay, here's what I can do. I can take Zan in a transport pod, and you can suck all the air out of Moya to clear her out, and you'll be good.
That's a cool plan.
And Pilot's like, all right, that's cool, but what about you? And Aaron's like, don't worry about me. I'm just gonna...
Selfless sacrifice.
Yeah. So she has the opportunity to be cool, and then unfortunately she just can't find Zan.
Yeah, exactly.
She's hiding, and it's like, well... So Aaron has to make the tough choice to blow Zan out of the airlock in order to save Moya. And then
they have to flush the atmosphere, essentially.
Yeah, and so she locks herself in command while Pilot does that. And then it turns out Zan was on the ceiling or something.
Yeah.
And now she's really mad.
Yeah.
But then Aaron is able to talk enough sense into her to get her to calm down.
To chill the heck out.
Yeah.
Which really robs that whole plot of any, like, tension.
Yeah.
Which, I guess, since a lot of it, the problem is, like, a lot of it is they don't even try to solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's all, like, temporary solutions to a permanent problem.
Right.
And they're like, no, but really, we just want them to get back. So it's kind of a B-plot and that's kind of the tragedy of it, if you're trying to take this episode seriously, is everybody in the B-plot is just doing their best to wait for the A-plot to hurry up.
Exactly.
And everyone in the A-plot is just trying to hurry up. So it's like this cool fusion of everyone's like motivations working together, which is a thing I liked about this episode. But again, it doesn't go anywhere.
It's like a game where the whole engine of the game is that like this person wants a shovel, so you have to go talk to the person who wants some milk, but the guy with the cows wants you to get him a jewel, so you have to go to the jewel guy, but he'll give you a jewel if you get him a special book, and you have to like...
It's an adventure. It's a point-and-click adventure game.
You have to go back through the chain just to get... Solve the plot.
Kill the Kidva to get the meat, to give it to Zan, to make her not be there.
It's just... it's so ridiculously all plot, no character.
Exactly.
And the only real character moment in this episode at all is the fact that Dargo and Chiana like kiss at the end.
Yeah.
Which...
Is that in the theme song now? Because in the second episode there were two people kissing. I wasn't sure if it was Chiana and Dargo.
No, Dargo and Zan kissing is always in the theme song.
Because this was like the second episode was the first time I paid attention to the theme song, and I was like, wait a minute, why would they add that? I don't care. Yeah. But is that the gist of the Aaron Zan plot?
Yeah.
They're waiting and the tension builds and then she's okay and then they bring back the food. And the final scene, okay, so everybody they have a lot of meat now.
Yeah.
And they're cutting it up with like a cool like barbecue knife. And again, John Crane decides to go full Southern.
Yeah,
Southern
way Southern.
he even says like y'all eat up now. I think that's like the last thing he says in the episode. Yeah. He's like, I got you guys a bunch of food. You can eat it, enjoy it. I cooked it up nice and like Mama used to make it. And then it's barbecued Kidva. That's what I was going to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all talking. Chiana draws Dargo away. That's where they kiss. Zan apologizes to Aaron. We're cleaning up loose threads here. Dargo joins Chiana. There's the kiss. And then the end of the episode is Chiana looks down and she's like, whoa. I was going to pull it off. I couldn't do it fast enough.
Whoa!
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing that confused me about that scene that I was like, oh my god, that scene with them eating all the food came right after they killed the Belisarius, Balrog? Bisog.
I think.
Sure. I thought they ate him for a second. No, I was so scared.
No, it was the Kidva.
And then I was like, oh yeah, it's probably the skewered gigantic thing.
Yeah.
So was that the trick? Was that he was saying I have the meat hidden in there, but that's the meat?
No, there was also meat in there.
Why didn't they just get that meat?
I think they got it all.
Oh, okay. So they have a lot of meat now.
Yeah,
so they're good.
They got tons of meat.
That's great.
They're set.
Good for them.
Me-wise.
Don't. Do you have background information for this episode?
I
I know you do. Why am I asking?
I just want to see if there are any notes that I had left.
Oh yeah,
that
sorry.
I wanted to talk about. MVP of this episode goes to Erin. It always goes to Erin, but
yeah, pretty much.
She had the most sensible and non-crazy motivations in this whole thing. And she was trying. She did her best. She kind of messed up, but it wasn't her fault. Yeah, I really didn't like this Dargo Chiana stuff as it was going. I liked the visor guy that Rigel was gambling with. I wish we'd seen more of him. His whole alien race just wears visors.
Visors, that's the fifth, I think. I love the visor gambler character and anything. And, I just... Oh, do you have another one?
The part where Chiana's flirting with the guy with Basag.
Yeah.
She's fondling his head gouge.
Yeah. She's like wringing her finger through, like, ew, this is... Is that supposed to be like his little, like his taint or something? Like, what is she going for?
I don't know.
I don't want to touch that prop ever. I hope they threw that one out. And she's like completely on top of him, which is hilarious, just visually.
Yeah. Erin was just wearing a leather vest.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
I keep forgetting to mention this to you, but the last couple episodes, they've like subtly been changing Erin's outfit from the cool vest to like a diamond shirt. Where it, like, covers the chest area and then skips over the belly button.
Yeah.
So it's like a midriff shirt. It's like a really goofy, not cool-looking midriff shirt.
Yeah, it kind of bothered me.
Yeah. There's a great memorable quote in this episode, by the way.
Which one?
It's on the wiki. I forget what scene this was. It's a John and Shiana conversation.
Sorry,
Magellan, I saw you doing that. He has the wiki open on his computer.
On my laptop right now.
And it was like, do you want to wait to load this page or kill it? And he went to kill, and I'm like, no. Oh.
This part?
Yes. What is that scene? Sorry, people were going to read it.
It's John says, fields of green grass. Chiana says, well, mold is green. Crystal blue streams. Ruptured bile ducts, actually. If I had anything at all left in my stomach right now, I'd throw up. I think that's when they're looking at the corpse at the beginning. That's my best guess.
Oh, I guess you're right. That makes sense.
That's the only thing that makes sense. And then, let's see. Oh, one thing I wanted to bring up. So the word Tralk we have not mentioned, but it's within the,
the new
the
swear
lexicon
word?
Of their swear words. Does it mean whore?
I think so.
Okay.
There was like one other new swear word, I think. It was like a hell replacement.
I don't know that I noticed.
Maybe it was just Frel again.
Yeah.
But I also like that, if we're talking about cool Farscape swear words, that they now use Frel not only as like a Frel you, but like you and I are about to go Frel.
We're going to go Frel.
Which is cool.
Well, I want to talk a bit about swear words in the second episode.
Yeah, that's where all of that comes to.
Yeah, but a lot of people call Chiana a Tralk, and I just wanted to make sure that
it sounds like a racial slur.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think that's pretty much it for my notes on it. So I'll just go ahead and read the background information here.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man.
Look at you doing things.
So Ben Browder stated that Crichton's comment about giving his arm to Zan was a reference to DNA mad scientist. Okay, sure.
Why did you have to say Ben Browder stated? That's just a fact. You don't have to tell us that he said that.
Though she normally prefers creating her own tears, Claudia Black used menthol to create her like allergy tears.
Oh, word.
Which makes sense, because how would you act like I'm tearing up from allergies?
Yeah, you can act like I'm crying, but acting up allergy tears is hard.
Yeah. Apparently, costume designer used the Murders in the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe for the inspiration when designing the Kidva.
Oh.
Which, that makes sense. It does look like a bad visualization of a Poe monster. Like something that is way scarier in words than it is in visual.
Because it's in shadow a lot, but then when we do see it, it's like, this thing looks so dumb.
Mm-hmm. This episode was the only Farscape episode to receive an 18 certificate from the British Board of Film Classification, which I'm guessing is for the hand dissolving.
Probably.
I think that's what...
Such a weirdly violent moment.
Do you have this up on your...
Does your thing keep crashing?
Yeah, Shockwave is just not working.
It's not cooperating. Here you go.
Thank you.
Ah. FKRs.
Let's see.
So
the guy who played Basag was originally trying to use an Australian Aboriginal accent, but it sounded too much like an American Southern accent.
Yeah.
So they had him change it.
That's why this accent is bad. Or, I mean, he's just bad.
Yeah, it's just all over the place. Some quote from that guy about how hot it is on set. Who cares?
Who cares?
Terry Ryan, who I guess is one of the costume designers as well, said that Gold Rush attire was what inspired the costume design for the people in this episode.
Interesting.
Which makes sense. I got kind of a gold rush vibe from
Yeah,
him.
we're all talking about the mines and trying to get the stuff out of it.
And I think doing a sort of working class mining place episode would have been a cool idea, but they just crowded it with so much nonsense.
Yeah.
That it didn't come out.
Gotta love that Kiva.
LC considered Basog's flesh-melting effects as gory as the ones he created for Hellraiser.
Yeah.
So,
it's oh, man. I'm thinking about putting that scene as the thumbnail, but that's like a little too gruesome.
Rocky and Sobanin talking about how adventures had been comfortable before this one, and this was the first time that they were bringing hunger into the stories, which, again, was something I thought could have worked better if it was...
It's like one of my favorite potential plots for these things.
Yeah. Another quote from O'Bannon that actually is pretty interesting.
Yep.
So I'm just going to read the whole thing here. He says, "One of the things I wanted to do was to be like the Star Wars films and show the physical scale of things. That's a big part of the appeal, or the appear, I think he's trying to say appeal, of the original Star Wars. You have matte shots of little people with gigantic buildings, of the Jawa crawler. There's something very unearthly about that scale. So whenever we could, we would present things that were very big in scale, like the Peacekeeper command carrier. I felt that continued to sell the notion of other worlds." Which is pretty interesting that
they care about their like off-planet episodes and
making
everything look believable.
They're really thinking about it. And then there's also a fact here about how killing the Kidva is sort of reminiscent of Luke Skywalker, the way he killed the Rancor in Return of the Jedi.
Oh, sure.
With the gate.
Yep.
So just another Star Wars connection here. Rowan Woods, the director, talking about his methodology, which is that he just pictures himself telling Earth stories in like other places, so he doesn't necessarily make his direction any different than how he would if he were
doing a not sci-fi show. That's the right way to do it, I think.
Yeah, or that's just the way that he does it.
Yeah.
Which is why they use him on episodes that are more like earthy. So he did a human reaction.
Oh, interesting.
Things like that.
Rowan Woods does a lot of that work.
That is
not Dream of the Doom. That's Home on the Remains.
That's Home on the Remains. We did not take nearly as long to talk about it as we usually do, because we just didn't feel that it was worth talking about.
It's not. I have a lot to say about the second episode, though.
Oh, good.
And we'll do that right after this.
Hello, ScapeChatz listeners. One half of your spacefaring team, Alan here, with the Moyabag, a segment where we gather up all the lovely feedback that we get and respond to it. I like to start with the tweets which we get at ScapeChatz on Twitter. First one being from frequent commenter. They sent us a memo regarding last week's episode, and the main point I wanted to mention from it was this. Okay, let's get this out of the way early. It's not addressed much, but Pilot has chronic pain. As someone that's struggled with chronic pain for years, I know exactly how Pilot was able to internalize his emotions in regards to the pain, and his flood of feeling/relief after he's unbonded is entirely realistic. And that's the undercurrent that makes this episode so painful and powerful for me. They also mentioned that we were supposed to be on Shiana's side in that episode's debate, and how, quote, everyone on the ship is selfish and really sensitive to betrayal. They were also a big fan of this particular line from the episode. Everyone has things in their past they don't want on instant replay. And finally, their last comment was, I cry when Aaron cries. Also, I love the single tear trick. It is my favorite. Bye. Thank you as always for your lovely memos. And at Angela Scrangela commented again, remarking that my reaction to the term Litigara at the end of last episode was perfect, and that they reacted the same way. So, yeah, great comments all around Twitter. That laugh is, and I mentioned it in this episode as well, like the most genuine laugh I've ever had in the history of recording this show. It was just so, like, pure, and I know it's, like, loud as shit, but it was like a joy in me that just came from the ridiculousness of a planet called Litigara full of lawyers. On the Reddit thread, shout out to new listener Black Panda 9. Welcome aboard. And Blue Blaze Spear left another lengthy and great comment about the way we weren't, talking more about how Maldus sucks, and the really prescient point that it is a case of Farscape doing what it does best, making the plot service the characters instead of making the characters service the plot. Before ending their comment with, considering the 2 episodes from next week's podcast, I'm glad that I enjoy listening to you guys dump on bad episodes as much as I enjoy listening to you celebrate the good ones. Yeah. So, I also love that this is a show about characters. I think we need more sci-fi like that on television. And I do think we have some interesting opinions about Home on the Remains and Dreamy Little Dream. User Keiku, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, replied to that comment saying that Won't Get Fooled Again is the best episode of any show, and now they're excited to hear our opinions on that one. Finally, and I apologize if this is going long, please indulge me, because I really want to read this last comment from Reddit user Mr. J. Handle. I really enjoy your show. Please don't take the following in the wrong way, but you guys are way more insightful than I was expecting when I started listening. I happened upon the show when you were about 5 episodes in, and I was like, a couple college kids doing a first watch of Farscape? Sure, could be fun. I'm almost 40, they say in parentheses. It probably says more about me than you that I wasn't expecting much, but seriously, you guys have become my go-to show, meaning I'll pause whatever other show I'm listening to when I see a new ScapeChatz pop up. I've even started watching along the same episodes, so it's fresh in my mind every week. I really enjoy that you understand and analyze genre conventions, use TV lingo, and that you're politically aware of the time period when the show was made, and analyze it within the context of current times. Really, you guys just hit all the buttons I'm looking for in a sci-fi podcast. Can't wait to hear your Season 3 reactions. Consider Season 3 to be one of the best seasons of sci-fi ever produced, and I would give anything to be able to watch it again for the first time. I look forward to living vicariously through you. On the technical side, I also appreciate that you're getting better at the art of podcasting because your show deserves it. And having done some myself, I know that it takes a lot of practice to get it right. Keep up the good work. Like, just the thought that we have such a diverse group of listeners of all shapes and sizes makes me really emotional. I'm not gonna lie, I read this comment last Friday night, and I immediately sent it to Magellan, and I was like kind of tearing up, and just this idea that we are someone's go-to show is like ridiculous and awesome to me, and that's just this silly thing that we do together that we're learning as we go along, and it's like there's like a nice feeling in my stomach that when I read this comment, Mr. J. Handle. So thank you. You are good. You're good people. With that, another Moyabag is completed. You can always email us at ScapeChatz@gmail.com, tweet to @ScapeChatz with your thoughts, or leave a comment on our weekly Reddit threads over at reddit.com/r/Farscape, and we will read it on the air next episode. Please enjoy our extensive thoughts on Dream a Little Dream.
We're back. Talking season. Sorry. Ooh, I just completely slammed Magellan's foot with the chair.
No, it didn't hurt. It's fine.
What was that reaction?
You barely.
Was it a human reaction?
Oh.
Season 2, episode 8, also known as, I can't look at it. Dream Little Dream. You were just singing the song for 5 minutes.
I was.
And it was written by Stephen Ray, who's a writer that I don't think we've seen before.
Well, it's actually a pen name of Rockney O'Bannon.
Rockney?
Mm-hmm.
And it's directed by Ian Watson.
Yeah.
A guy who we've seen very, very frequently.
Yeah.
And it aired June 23rd, 2000. So, I was an age. And it was close to my birthday. I wanted to say it was close to my birthday. I didn't want to say how old I was. But yeah, this episode was interesting.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of it, but overall I didn't like it.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. There were so many things where I'm like, this is brilliant. What do you think? Keep this. But it just doesn't come together again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really frustrating. So this episode is sort of framed as the Rashomon, like the what happened while you guys were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like what happened while Aaron, Dargo, and Crichton were drifting through space for days.
Yeah.
Like a month or whatever, 30 days they said.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. And this is what happened to Zahn and the rest of the gang, Zahn, Shiana, and Rigel during all of that. So what I wanted to start by asking you is, what was the framing device of the beginning, where Zahn and Crichton are talking?
So they don't. I don't think they make it that clear in the cold open. It is a lot clearer in the tag in the very end that he and Zan are on a transport pod that gets stuck because somebody jammed meat in the controls.
Who did? What?
Rigel did.
Oh, okay.
He was like stashing meat in there.
Oh, and where were they just doing like some routine mission?
Yeah.
That's a cool way to start an episode, I guess.
Yeah, so they're just stuck, and they have to wait for everybody else to pick them up.
And so this episode becomes Zahn telling John what happened during that whole thing. So that's the framing device. And a lot of stuff happens.
Yes. Before we get into the flashback, though, my translator microbes for this episode comes up at the very beginning, which is the question of how does lyrical singing translate?
Snap! What was the scene you're referring to?
When he sings Dream a Little Dream
Oh,
of Me.
yeah. I think that's just, you can, like, hear lyricality and, like, musicality in words.
Well, you can hear, like, if you hum, you don't have to translate that.
Right.
It's just sounds, right? But if you're singing lyrics, how does that work?
Those are still words.
I know they're words, but they're not going to translate into something that's the same number of syllables and also rhymes.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe they just sound sing-songy, and she just knows he's singing.
Interesting. I just think that that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's also your favorite word.
The word interesting?
It's interesting
probably.
that's your favorite word. Was this? I'm trying to remember. I want to get to my first note because I remember thinking it was interesting. Zahn is having visions of things going really badly for the rest of them, but is that in the flashback?
I think what they're trying to say is that she was having nightmares when they were gone about bad things happening to them, and those nightmares are still going on. So the episode starts with what we saw from the end of Family Ties, except
you're right.
Aaron gets attacked by all these people, and then John's helmet breaks open and his face explodes.
That's what I wrote here. They Total Recalled it.
Yeah.
You haven't seen Total Recall?
No, but I'm assuming that you're making a good reference. So.
Well, there's just a scene at the end where someone, like, thinks that they are in, like, the worst case scenario situation, and Arnold Schwarzenegger lands on Mars with his girlfriend, and their faces pop. And it's the same exact... Like, his eye comes out. Like, in this episode, his, like, eye comes out. It's gross. For, like, 2 seconds, though. It's not as bad as last episode. And that's the way the episode starts, which is kind of nuts. That they don't tell you it's a flashback at first. And then they're like, no, it's Zahn's having terrible dreams. Everyone's dead. God bless you. And so they Total Recall it, and then was he knitting when he was singing Dream Little Dream to her?
I don't think he was knitting. I think he was fixing something.
I was looking so intently at it, and I'm like, he's like holding two things.
I think they were wires or something.
Probably.
He was playing with
I would
tools.
love to think that he was just knitting her a sweater while singing Dream a Little Dream. That's the cutest thing. And then how do we get to Litigara?
So him singing Dream a Little Dream was ad-libbed, but it made sense because it segued right into
the dream
the dream because he's like, Dream a Little Dream of Me, and then Zan is like, I was dreaming about you.
She goes, how did you know I was doing that? He's like, come on.
So she goes over to sit with him and she says, have Raj Luciano told you about what happened on Litigara? And he's like, they talked about it, but they said I should ask you.
And she's like, I don't like to talk about it.
He's like, okay, well.
Because that planet name is so stupid. That laugh last week was the most genuine laugh I've ever had with the show.
The name of the planet.
Was realizing, yes.
Yeah.
And then there's still like a couple more scenes. We haven't finished the cold open yet.
Yeah, there are a few scenes on
Litigara.
It starts with they're in a bar. Rigel's drunk off his ass, which is very amusing.
Mm-hmm.
Zan is angrily asking the bartender if he's seen a Sebation, a Luxon, and another Sebation.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I haven't seen those people. So they go through all that, and then Zan leaves the bar.
Yep. She goes outside.
Yeah, she's distraught.
Yeah.
And then she stops at the crosswalk because it says don't walk.
That's so weird.
But then somebody uses like a little remote control.
The little lady with the cool jacket.
Right, to make her say go. So then Zan goes and gets run over.
By a car.
And then she gets arrested for jaywalking.
That's a real plot! Yeah. On a sci-fi planet, on a show run by lawyers.
Right.
That someone has a button that lets you... Okay, what is going on here? That was my first thought. Is like, am I watching like they're in New York City now? Like what happened? Because they go outside and it like looks very city-like. It looks very like Earthling. And she walks outside and they're like, oh, don't. And she goes by like the divider and like you said, gets run over. And I'm like, is that where the end of the cold open is?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Why is this cold open so long?
I don't know. It's like 6.5 minutes long.
I think I timed it about that. I think it's because they needed to get everything before Litigara out of the way. And then firmly
part of it is this episode, just to remind people the background info that we learned when we watched the pilot.
Uh-huh.
I keep calling the first episode of the season the pilot, the premiere of the season, is that this plot was originally meant to be the first episode of season 2.
Okay.
And so the flashback framing device was tacked on, which is why this cold open is long, is because it's really two cold opens jammed against each other.
And it's why Crichton in that beginning looks more normal and doesn't have the dumb hair that he had at the very beginning of season 2, which it was like full.
True.
He kind of flits back and forth, but he's kind of gone away from it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like the flashback Crichton and the Zahn's dreams in prison Crichton are different, clearly.
Right, yeah.
Which I thought was cool. And then Zahn is really angry, and then she gets arrested.
Yeah, I want to talk about swearing.
Oh, yes.
Farscape swearing real quick.
Yes.
Because in the first scene, Zan scolds Rigel for getting Dren-faced, which really bugged me.
Oh, is Dren our shit now? We need a
Dren,
swear dictionary.
Dren is Frel as fuck.
Okay.
Dren is shit.
Okay.
Tralk is whore.
Okay.
And then I think
there's a
there's like Farba or something. That's like another one.
You made that up. Don't mess with me.
I'm gonna look up a Farscape dictionary.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
You can whatever I find, you can link in the
okay
in the stuff here.
Yes. So Zahn is really angry in jail because she feels like she's been betrayed, and then some people come up to her and they like threaten her or something, and they tell her like, yeah, you are in here for the murder of like this guy basically like, and this gets to my biggest problem with the episode is that she's in prison at this point, correct?
Mm-hmm.
This is my biggest problem with the episode. There's way too much telling people what's going on this planet, and not enough just like showing it. And ooh, this is a nice little.
It's on Wiktionary.org.
Does it have like the swear words and stuff?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not like segmented, but it has everything.
Oh, cool. Well, you should send that to me.
I will.
Excuse me. So the guy is basically like, yeah, you, Zahn, are in prison on here, Litigara, a planet full of lawyers, and you are here because you're in prison because you murdered this guy who is a rebel against the country.
So
not yet.
Here's what happened.
Okay.
Zan is in the jail cell.
Yes.
She has a lawyer, and he's like, "Hey, I'm your lawyer.
Yep.
Listen, it's not going to be a big deal. You were arrested for jaywalking. You're from off-world.
Right,
you didn't know. We'll get you off with the lowest sentence, which is like 10 days."
Okay.
And they get upset because they can't wait 10 days because Moya really wants to leave.
And she says she'll leave them forever.
Yeah. She'll just go and she probably won't come back.
Yeah.
So they say, we can't just wait 10 days. We need to get her off with something shorter than that because she's not guilty of jaywalking.
Okay.
And he says, well, you can get another lawyer. Look, this room's full of them. Everyone's a lawyer.
Literally every. Yeah, that's the way they do it.
Then Zan gets really angry and starts choking him.
Yeah,
they subdue her. Then later, she's in her cell, and the lady who works for the bad guy,
the lady who made the traffic light switch,
melts her jail bars
and
is like, "Hey, I can get you out of here. You just got to go this way. Follow these instructions." So she goes to leave, and when she leaves, she runs into a dude who's either she finds a dead body there, or she runs into a dude who's killed right there. Where she's there.
She's in like an alleyway.
Yeah. And then she's found.
Oh, she's found there, and they're like, "You did this."
Yes.
Okay.
And now she's on trial for that guy's murder.
And makes sense then.
And her lawyer doesn't want to go with a not guilty plea because he doesn't believe that she's not guilty.
Okay.
And on this planet, if a lawyer lies, then they will suffer the same fate as their client.
Oh.
Yes. So that's where we're in court, and Chiana and Rigel say, "No, we'll be her lawyer."
Oh,
which is great.
Okay.
That's great.
That's such
Yes.
They're the highlights of this episode, I think.
Uh-huh.
Can we agree on that? I think that's
for sure.
But before we get, that's good. That's really important that we understand that.
So that's the context of why she's being tried.
But while she's in prison the first time, she's hallucinating a lot.
Yes.
And one of the running things that happens during this episode is that people like John and Aaron and Dargo come up to her at various major points in her whole adventure, and they're like, "Hey, you start to think that they're gonna just be like, 'Hey, you suck, you're the worst,' but they're kind of just like, You're doing your best, and we're sorry. Like, we're sorry that we got lost. We'll probably find you. Do your best. You're doing fine."
Uh-huh.
They're kind of like giving her encouraging words.
Well, they are. A lot of what they're saying is like, we're probably dead.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to.
But like, you have to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
You should return to the Delvian Seek.
Yeah.
Which
okay,
she does.
We'll talk about that. Yes. And so you can kind of argue that those hallucinations are her subconscious, like the smart part of her telling her, like,
right,
you need to move on,
mm-hmm.
which is really interesting. And then I think when she's in prison, she also says, "I am so deeply alone and afraid," which is a really nice, little awkward line, but I thought it was just nice because it was, because Zahn is like, getting a lot of emotional backstory in this episode that I didn't think we needed.
Yeah, I loved the scene with her and imaginary Dargo.
Yeah,
it was just Dargo.
When she's about to be like put on trial again.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great scene, especially when you consider that it's in her mind. So when he like goes up and like kisses her, yeah, we'll get to that.
And then it cuts back and she's just like moving her lips.
Yeah. Oh, it's the worst. It's so sad. We'll get to that though. So is this the part when she gets into court for the first time after everything you just said?
I believe so. I honestly did not keep track of the plot scene by scene. I just kind of know vaguely how it progresses.
Right. Me too.
I don't know if you know, if you have a more.
I can just kind of follow my notes. I also have a wiki summary, but I know that we get to court at some point.
We do.
And what's the name of the guy? You have to tell me exactly what the guy's name is.
Which guy?
The main like bad guy that's trying to like indict them.
It's like Ja Rule or something.
No. You don't ruin the joke. Don't ruin the joke.
Oh, it's Ja Ruman.
It's Ja Ruman. So I wrote here, welcome, counselor. I'm Ja Rule. I'm not always there on time. I'm not always there when you call, but I have you. I have you in your my all. I spent most of these notes writing out Ja Rule lyrics. Because this whole episode, I was like,
you understand that that's going to fly over my head.
I know.
Time,
right?
Right?
That's why these are funnier. Is because you're just like, I don't. Ja Rule was great in like 11, 12 years ago.
Okay.
And then I think he went to prison or something. Every rapper from the early 2000s went to prison at some point.
It's possible.
But yeah, and then he does at the end of that scene when she gets the other lawyer, he's like, "Trust me, I'm a lawyer." And I like jumped out of my seat and I was like, "Is that irony? Is that what it's supposed to mean? Are you trying to say like, trust me, I'm a lawyer is a joke because lawyers can't be trusted?" And then my head like did like a 360 and like spun out of its little screw. There's so many awkward lines like that in this scene in this episode where they're just like, lawyers are bad, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't it terrible that you work with a whole planet full of lawyers?
There was one line like that relating to it that I liked, though, which is when Rigel and Chiana were in court, and Rigel helium farts.
Yep.
Chiana gets mad at him, and Rigel says, I was nervous. It happens when I'm nervous. We're in court, so sue me.
That's a good line. They have so much fun. I'm impressed that Gigi Edgley can just riff off of a puppet so well.
Right.
It's amazing. Let's try and get back on track with the plot.
Sure.
Rigel explains that Chiana Litigar is run by law firms. Oh yeah, Rigel also explains. It's Rigel and the bartender guy know everything weirdly.
You know, because Rigel's been reading the books.
The books that are like pieces of like glass.
Yeah, it's just laminated pictures.
Yeah, with like a tree on them.
They all look like the sort of things that you tilt, and they look different.
Oh yeah, like the holographic pictures.
Yeah. That looks like what their books are made of.
Exactly.
And the way that like you were saying, it is all tell, because the way that we learn facts about this planet is Rigel says, "Hey, so I was reading in your law books about this law stuff."
This whole
and the
axiom.
Guy says, "Oh yeah, well that's the law stuff. Let me tell you about it." And the specific the concept they talk about is the light of truth.
The axiom of truth.
Axiom of truth.
Which is a really cool name.
Which is basically...
Oh no, the light of truth, but it's the axiom that refers to that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Basically this concept that if you light a torch on fire and hold it close to somebody, if they lie, then it'll burn brighter.
Yeah.
And this is sort of a legend that has been passed down and is the core philosophical concept behind their legal system.
And then that's, again, it's such a tell scene where they're like, wait, well, why is it so complicated now? And he's like, well, you see, over time it got more complicated because everyone wanted to be a lawyer, and then we have these people called utilities, and you killed a utility because he was a rebel and utilities are just non-lawyers. They're literally everyone else. And this non-lawyer wanted to be like, he had some really radical ideas, and you killed him, so some people are happy about it, some people are not. And you don't get any of that. You just get court scenes, which are cool and great, but I feel like there's a lot more stuff that could happen on Litigara, both visually and narratively, that I would have preferred than, like, we went to court and we got freed thanks to a loophole in your weird law system. Also, I think the light of truth is, like, that sounds like a real concept from some ancient civilization. But, like, if you hold fire up to someone and it burns brighter.
I thought it was a cool concept.
Yeah. The fact that it sounded, I was like, they probably just literally lifted that from something. Yeah. And I looked it up and they did not. I was like, oh, okay. So we get a little bit more meandering where they go, it's basically a lot of like, we go to the bar, we freak out, we think about like, oh no, what are we going to do? Someone comes up with an idea, Rigel looks in the law book and goes, oh, I found this light of truth thing. And then we get to the courtroom scene.
One of them.
There's a lot of courtroom scenes.
Yeah, there's a few.
Ja Ruman, by the way, you were right. there was some bad music in this episode that I wanted to also point out.
A little bit.
Which is weird because I think last week was when we got Guy Gross for the first time.
But this music might have been done earlier.
Oh, you're right, because this is an old episode.
Yeah.
But I was saying, some of this music sounded like a bad Tekken ending cutscene just because it's so synth piano-y. And then she meets all of her friends, and then before the final court scene, we get to. I feel like we're going too fast.
It's not.
You were telling me this episode is tissue paper. That's how you described it.
Pure tissue paper, because it's a lot like the problem that we had with the one where Crichton is fishing and he doesn't have a shirt.
Jeremiah Crichton.
Nice. Where a lot of the drama is centered around characters that are not the main characters. They're just servicing the plot of the planet, which can work sometimes in science fiction, but it's kind of a cop-out in Farscape when the importance of the show is we want to focus on the characters, the individuals that comprise the Moya crew.
Cast. Yeah.
Especially when the episode is supposed to be about, here's the shit that we were going through when you guys were gone. And when it's just we went to a weird planet and did something weird, that's not really that satisfying. So this is not an episode that you have to pay close attention to.
Also, it's kind of weird that Zahn says to Crichton at the beginning, I don't like to talk about this. Because she gets framed for murder and then is freed because of a loophole.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of I went on a weird adventure.
Yeah.
That's not I went... The Vision stuff is sad.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it's okay, I'm learning about why Zahn feels uncomfortable about all this.
Right.
But the action itself doesn't feel like something that's tragic or something I don't want to remember.
Exactly, yeah.
Then before the last couple court scenes, there's the scene you were just talking about earlier with Dargo and Zahn.
Right.
Where she's hung up and about to be taken in, and she sees Dargo and he comes up to her and he says, hi, I'm probably dead again. You should definitely take up the Delvian Seek again, which is the thing that she was doing at the beginning of the season where she's praying like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So is this the explanation for why she started doing that so much?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
She was just convinced that they were dead, and it turned her catatonic, and she's I need to find solace in religion.
In your spirituality. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. But it's one of the greatest cuts that the show has done so far, where she, in her sort of memory of Dargo, they kiss, and he kisses her deeply, and then cut. She's just blah, 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 blah. She's just flapping her gums, saying another Delvian prayer, and Rigel's what is she doing?
Yeah.
Rigel's the perfect audience stand in there from what
yeah.
What happened?
I love the crew. Rigel, Chiana, Zan.
Yeah.
That is a great 3-person crew.
There's that line where I think one of them, or someone's in one of the flashbacks, someone's why don't, you're fine with Rigel and Chiana. And she's they're kids. I can't go on fun adventures with them because they're children and I'm an adult. We don't, our two kids, we don't have a middle ground anymore.
Right.
But it does lead to some interesting.
It's just such a well-balanced 3. Because the thing about Dargo, Aaron, and John as a group of 3 is that they're just going to yell at each other and posture because they're all kind of tough
people, or they put on a tough face.
Yeah, but Rigel, Zan, and Chiana can all 3 of them can move back and forth between responsible and completely out of their element within that 3 and kind of counterbalance each other in motion throughout the episode. Mm-hmm. Chiana can be responsible in certain scenes and then not be responsible, be drunk and on the table. Yeah. And then Rigel can be well, I'm drunk at the beginning, but now I learn the way to fix this and to lie to get us out of it.
Yeah, it's a good dynamic.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I think it makes sense that they survived that many days on their own because they have stuff going on. So I guess at this point, then we get the, I kept thinking Dargo. Rigel and Chiana have discovered this loophole. And they are talking to Moya.
So, yes, you're calling it a loophole. I would say that they find a way to just, cheat and lie. Which was a bummer for me. Because the way that you want an episode like this to go
is they find a loophole and they're I got you with your own laws.
You want it to be a Legally Blonde situation where they are the outsiders who figure out the one thing that nobody else would have noticed, but they noticed it, and so they solved it with logic. Mm-hmm. And they did do that.
They essentially did that.
But it didn't convince anybody.
So they cheated.
Yeah. But they knew that the guy was the bad guy. Like, they knew it. And they could have proved it. But instead they cheated to show...
To make it real. Like, oh my god, look how much cheating
he's
is.
lying. But they had to lie to prove that he was lying. It's just not very satisfying.
Because that concept is a myth.
Right.
But they have to be like, no, look, your myths are real. So they're working within the theoretical concepts of this civilization, but they're not doing it realistically. They are cheating.
Yeah, they're being manipulative.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say about them talking to Moya is like at the beginning, Moya is telling them, or Pilot is telling them, Moya's gonna leave after a couple of days because she can't keep waiting. And then right before the end, when they're talking to him about like, hey, we want you to do this thing, she goes, by the way, Moya has been tuned into your comms this whole time. She's heard everything. She understands the situation. And I'm like, she's essentially there then. She was essentially the fifth person on the planet or whatever. Why would she ever consider not going with them if she knew what was happening?
I think what Pilot said is that they left their comms open during a certain part.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't tuned in the whole time. But Moya's motivation in this episode is a little shaky. Or it's not shaky, it's just you have to keep track of it. And she's very fickle. But like, I'm going to leave, but I probably shouldn't. I should probably wait for you guys. So.
And then she's like, nah, I'll give you a little more time.
So she's cool about it, but also not that cool about it.
Yes. And then Rigel says, oh yeah, he goes, we can do it, but it'll involve lashings of deception and trickery. Which is a great line. And then Shiana is at the stand. No. Well, actually, what happens is Zan's about to, like, give herself up. She's like, I did it. I'm the worst. Bad.
Yeah,
bad,
that happens, like, halfway through. I think.
Or, you're right. You're totally right.
And then they tell the guards to just gag her.
Yes.
That she can't say that she's guilty.
My God. And then Shiana calls... She goes, I call to the stands, Ja Rule. And he's like...
What does he say?
Your hips, your thighs, love the way you calling me baby. And then he gets off, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, they just have a dance party in this episode.
He doesn't see... It's Ashanti who sings that line, but he is the rapper. You can't... It's hard to pick a Ja Rule line, because this is a Ja Rule impression I'm about to do. But he always sings with beautiful, like, female singers, and so it's always, like, this juxtaposition. It's great. We're gonna listen to Ja Rule after this.
Great, awesome.
So he comes onto the stands, and they're like, oh, you're on trial now. And we're gonna make you testify. I don't know how court works. I like the way that
they're also like weird sci-fi courts. So who knows?
Speaking of weird sci-fi court, I like the judge's hat a lot.
It's very fun.
It's like just a big circle, just a big red thing. Mm-hmm. And then which is weird because the other cool or like you always talk about how you don't like the way sometimes aliens are portrayed on the show because it's always either masks or makeup. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the makeup is really lazy. Like in this episode, everyone on Litigara, if they're a lawyer, they have like it kind of looks like Scorpius's hat, where it's just like the black hat thing, which is okay. That's fine. But if they're utilities, they got gray face paint on, and that's it.
Right.
That's not an alien. That's a person with face paint on.
It looks like, so let's say that there were some clowns, okay?
Fine.
And they all wash their faces into a common bucket, and then these people dunk their heads into the clown makeup bucket.
Oh, they just fell into clown makeup? Like refuse of clown makeup?
Alright, let's reuse this stuff.
We're good. We're lawyers now.
Yeah.
Or we're not. We're non-lawyers.
Because there's like splashes of red and stuff in it too, weirdly.
That just doesn't work. You don't just put face paint on the face and then make them people. So, their plan is that they're going to ask him if he was...
So we should say what the reality of the crime is.
Yeah, because I was confused about this, so I'm interested.
Basic plot.
Are you going to talk about the sunburn thing also?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So as you said, this is a planet comprised of lawyers and utilities, right?
Yeah.
And the utilities are sort of the working class people who are the bartenders and the garbage collectors, and they're everything except lawyers. The guy who was killed was a utility who was leading some kind of resistance movement.
Yes.
He wanted to overthrow the lawyers or make things more fair on this planet. The lawyers don't want that. So Ja Ruman, the head of one of the biggest law firms, which is probably called Ruman and whatever.
No, they say it.
They say it. I don't
it's something. It is some blank Ruman and something.
Yeah.
You're right.
He engineers this guy's death and frames Zan for it, and uses the police officer who arrested her to help with the framing, because he was formerly a guard for Rumen.
Uh-huh.
So this would have gone without a hitch, except for the fact that this planet has 2 moons.
Two red moons. They were cool.
2 red moons. And sometimes they are both out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're both out at the same time, they give moon burns to the blue-eyed people of this species. Now, we know the police officer is blue-eyed, and the guy who was killed is blue-eyed. And the night that Zan was framed was a night with both the moons out. The police officer had a moon burn. The dead guy didn't. Which means that he had to have been killed on a different day, or during the day, or something.
Oh, and they left his body out.
And then placed there.
I see.
Which, by itself, should be enough to exonerate Zan.
Yeah.
It's not enough to place the blame on...
Exonerate Zan? Go ahead.
It's not enough to place the blame on Ja Rumen, but it's enough to make Zan innocent. So I thought they were going towards a place where they were going to do this sort of big... My Cousin Vinny moment.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
You're so happy.
Just what law movies can I reference?
12 Angry Men.
Main ones.
Oh.
No, I just, you know what I mean?
Oh, like dumb.
Yeah. I love My Cousin Vinny, though. It's a good film.
Little
Have you
Daddy? Seen it? What's the Adam Sandler movie with the kid?
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy?
Yes.
It's sort of like a liar moment.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
We're also just talking early 2000s bad comedies involving lawyers.
Right.
Legally Blonde. There you go. What's the movie you're talking about? I haven't seen My Cousin Vinny. No.
It's good.
Okay.
It's pretty funny.
I met someone named Vinny yesterday who was someone else's cousin.
Wow.
Okay.
That's great.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Yes.
So I thought they were going towards that point where they were going to solve the thing, and it was going to be a procedural. But then they didn't. Instead, what Chiana and Rigel do is they get Moya to, this doesn't make any sense, blast her like light down onto the planet to, at certain points, make the light brighter on a torch that they've ignited.
Yeah.
When they're holding it to his face, asking him questions.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge, by the way, should have stopped Chiana multiple times for badgering, because she just kept asking questions without waiting for him to answer.
They don't give a crap about the rules.
And he conducted himself pretty well in the stand, because she says, you know, like, did this guy do this and commit this crime? And he says, well, speaking in the hypothetical, yes.
He knows his stuff.
Yeah, he's a lawyer. He's one of the biggest lawyers there is.
Yeah.
But eventually that's convincing enough for these people, the light. And then we come back and Zan's like, yeah, and all I know is that I was set free and he was probably executed or something. So,
what?
That was Litigara.
2 things about that scene. Okay. 1, that's not how you burn wood.
It looked weird.
Because it did look weird. She took a chair, she broke off the leg, and then she goes, do you know what this is? And he's like, that's a chair. Like, he like felt like he like won a contest. Like he was like, wait, yes, that's a chair leg. And she's like, good job. But it's also wood.
Oh, boy.
And she burns it with like her cool space lighter, which just is a regular lighter, but it then explodes at the end. So she goes, and it lights up. And the end of the chair like lights up. But it's like as if it was a electronic glow stick or something.
Yeah.
It didn't burn.
Like an e-cigarette. That's what it looks like.
Timely. And she lights it, and then Moya, I also wrote here, Moya now has one superpower that she has used twice this season, which is the ability to project lots of light. Crackers don't matter.
Mm-hmm. True.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Moya has the ability to be in distress, and to be sad, and to project lights.
Thank you, Moya.
So, yeah, I really appreciate her abilities. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's kind of
that's the episode. Do you have more notes about it, or do you want to get into the like background discussion?
Well, there was a line at the very end that I wrote, hey, look, translator microbes is what I wrote. So it was between Zahn and Crichton. Oh, it was when she goes, I have no idea what you're saying half the time, because he says like some idiom.
That was cute.
Yeah, that's all I got. It's a weird episode that was kind of fun, but not super substantive. What is your background information for this episode? Thank you, Farscape Encyclopedia Project Game Recognized Game. Woo!
Before we dive straight into it, just one thing I wanted to say is I would love to see a sci-fi legal procedural.
Yes.
Like a Boston Legal
Exists.
level. Does it exist?
I want it to.
Oh. Like a Boston Legal style thing where it's very irreverent,
Uh-huh.
but it also has moments that are like, direct commentary, but without the sort of limitations of, oh, well, you don't say that in a courtroom, or like that's not how that law works, because you can make it up and make it work for sci-fi land.
That has to exist. Why doesn't that exist?
Right? Doesn't that make
so
sense
easy.
as like a really good idea?
That seems like it's too easy. Like we're just missing something.
Yeah. Something like that almost existed with Angel.
Yeah.
Season 5,
yeah.
but then it didn't do like courtroom stuff.
It didn't exactly.
It had like a scene in a courtroom.
It became like a police procedural, but with lawyer stuff.
It became like a corporate procedural.
Or yeah, that's
really.
good.
A
serious version of The Office.
Yeah. Like we've had fantasy versions of police procedurals. That happens, or just like detective stories, but in fantasy land. But we don't have like a sci-fi legal show.
Let's work on it. Let's write it. You and me.
Let's pitch it. So we got a lot of interesting background information here. One thing that we already knew. This episode was originally entitled RE:union. So regarding union, or reunion. And it was slated to open up season 2.
Okay.
But this was changed, and Mind the Baby became the new season premiere. And so then the framing device was changed for this episode. How would you have felt? Here's my question. How would you have felt if this was the first episode of season 2?
I've been thinking a lot about that every time you mention it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the idea that we start the episode, like the season off, like, oh my god, Farscape's back, and not everyone's together.
Right.
That's a really
that
cool...
seems interesting.
So I think that would have been interesting, but this is not an interesting enough episode to do that.
No. Yeah, my thing about it is it's a plot that I enjoy elements of, but that is largely not a good episode, and I find that episodes like that are more forgivable the sooner they are in a season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't know that I would have wanted it as the first one, but if we'd seen it within the first 3 or 4 episodes,
that could have worked.
I think that would have been better.
Because now we're far enough away from this event that it's like, do I barely care anymore what happened with these guys?
Yeah. We almost forgot by the time this episode comes around that they were ever split up in the first
It's a little too deep into the season. That's a really good summation of this.
So that's that. And I want to talk more about where to start people on Farscape when we learn some more of this background information. But yeah, we'll go through it.
Yep.
So 3 major changes were made to the original version of this episode. So the opening sequence was added.
And
there was a scene between Zan and Pilot being stressed out over the loss of Aaron, John, and Dargo that was cut. And then
this episode's already packed, so...
Yeah. The original version of the nightmare was actually a nightmare that Rigel had. Yeah, which wouldn't have made sense.
Nope. Seeing as he hates everyone.
Yeah, I appreciated that this episode explained a bit as to why Zan was so crazy in the first episode. I still think she was a little too crazy in that first episode. And once again, I wish we had gotten this explanation earlier.
Agreed.
The image of Crichton, Dargo, and Aaron walking in silhouette is one of Claudia Black's favorite images from Farscape.
Why do I not remember it?
I don't remember it either.
Oh well, sorry, Claudia. It sounds like a cool hero shot, though.
Like I said before, the singing scene was ad-libbed by Ben Browder. Mad-libbed. And Ian Watson suggested that they get the rights to use it because he liked it so much.
Did they even use enough? Music rights are weird. Never mind.
Gigi Edgley was unable to complete her scenes in The Monkey's Mask due to her being required back on the Farscape set.
Oh, I thought she was like in a monkey's mask. But no.
The Monkey's Mask is a 2000 thriller film directed by Samantha Lang. It stars Susie Porter and Kelly McGills.
Ooh.
Porter plays a lesbian private detective who falls in love with the suspect in the disappearance of a young woman. The film is based on the verse novel of the same name by Australian poet Dorothy Porter.
Whoa. So was she one of the main people, or?
I don't know.
I doubt it.
Who knows?
Okie dokie.
She was
weird.
Just in it or something.
Anyways.
That's a weird find. Go watch that, I guess.
What was it called?
The Monkey's Mask.
Great name. Looks fun.
Ian Watson, when he was directing this episode, thought it was going to air between a rerun of Family Ties and the premiere.
Oh, okay.
Mind the Baby.
That's a good place to put it.
Yeah.
And not only that, but also, go ahead. I'm just
Oh.
feeling.
Virginia Hay described this episode as a mixture of every type on TV: drama, science fiction, a thriller. It's a cartoon. It's comic strip. It's a comedy. It's Farscape.
I want that to be like our whole show, or this whole show's summation.
As I said before, Stephen Ray is a pseudonym of Rockneus O'Bannon. I think there's one other episode where he uses this pseudonym.
Wasn't it before? Didn't we already see it?
We did. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was A Bug's Life.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the second episode that we watched from season 1.
Yes.
The original episode, or the original version, was aired on Sci-Fi Channel on June 1st, 2001, and included in the DVD release.
Okay.
So if you ever want to see the original cut of this episode as
weird.
the premiere of a season, that's
Sorry,
still there to be
lean
seen.
back in. Hi, guys.
So this is where this gets interesting.
Okay.
This script was one of the first 4 scripts that was written at all for Farscape.
Okay. By Rockney.
By Rockney and whoever else was developing it at the time. Because this show was in development for a long time.
Yeah, back when it was called Space Chase.
It was originally called Space Chase. It was in development for like 5 years or something, or even longer. Because the Henson Company was working with them, trying to find
puppets and stuff.
Yeah, making puppets, trying to find somebody to put it out. And it turns out Rod Perth was the guy at the Sci-Fi Channel who bought Farscape or Space Chase at the time. But the first script that he saw was not the pilot script; it was this script.
Oh.
He saw this script and he was like, "Hey, I like this. Do you have a pilot for this series?" And then they sent him the pilot and he bought Space Chase.
Whoa.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That the first person to ever consume any Farscape read this script first and was like, "I want more of this."
I wonder if this script was better on paper.
I wonder what it looked like back when it was the original characters too.
Because they would have had more people in it. I think this could have worked as if this had all of the characters in it, this would have been a really interesting, someone's first introduction to Farscape episode.
Yeah.
A legal sci-fi show and drama, but then also it might misdirect people into thinking that that's what this show is going to be.
Yeah, because we don't spend very much time on planets in this show.
You're right.
That background information explains a lot of why this episode feels a little too store brand for Farscape, because you're on a planet and the planet has a kitschy twist that all the people are lawyers and we're doing a weird plot that doesn't really mean anything, and it has some strange sci-fi concepts sprinkled in. But yeah, so that he read it and bought Space Chase, and the script ended up not having a place in the first season, so they moved it to the second season. And what it was. Oh, this okay, interesting. So this is why this was going to be the first episode of season 2, is because they were switching studios at the time between seasons, so they knew that at the beginning of production they wouldn't be using the Moya set because it was still being rebuilt in the new spot, so they had to use a fresh place that wasn't necessarily one of their studio sets. So they needed a script that was on a planet, and they're like, "Hey, we got this script that we've had since the beginning that we still haven't used, so let's do this."
I guess that also explains why Litigara doesn't feel like as much of a fully developed setting,
right?
As even last week's episode, the previous episode had a great sense of place that this one does not.
Yeah.
That explains so much.
Yeah. So that's that.
You learn something every day. I guess this show is getting into its weird production era, where they're just kind of working around their limits instead of creating whatever they want, which is also why I hear season 3 is where they finally nailed it.
There's also an interesting note here from O'Bannon about the tone of this episode, that they had to shift the tone of the script a bit because the original version was much more self-aware, and Litigara and their lawyers was like a joke.
Oh, that's why that.
So it was more winky, hey, it's a planet full of lawyers,
Whoa.
So wacky.
Yeah.
But then it's Farscape has kind of become a show that doesn't find humor in that way. It still doesn't take itself fully seriously, but it's a bit more grounded than that.
Yeah.
So
it's funny in a different way.
They had to shift it. And then we've got a comment from Claudia Black here saying that she was glad that it wasn't the opener because
she wasn't in it.
Maybe. I mean, because she
Well,
was
she's
like,
in
the
it.
audience really just wants to see what's up with the characters.
Yes.
And you're kind of stringing them along for an episode if you don't show them.
That's what I was saying earlier. Is I think it's interesting to do a first episode as we split people off, but no, like that doesn't get past any studio.
Right. So what I wanted to talk about just towards the end of this discussion, I've been thinking a lot about the idea of where to start somebody on Farscape.
Right.
And I thought when we were watching season 1 that the way it was going to go is a lot like Buffy season 1, where there's good bits, most of it's not great, it's very shaky, it hasn't found its tone yet. You should watch it if you want to watch everything and get its arc, but it's safe to have people skip that season and just go into other stuff. That's how I thought season 1 was going to go.
But you ended up liking season 1 more?
Well, but season 1 has a lot of great moments. And honestly, I don't think season 2 has hit its stride yet.
I agree.
And I think season 1 hit its stride a lot sooner.
Which is crazy.
Than season 2.
Uh-huh.
Which is very surprising to me. Because that was the zeitgeist sense of Farscape that I got, is that season 1 is kind of like, and then season 2 is when it starts to get good.
Yeah.
I think starting someone on season 2 would be a big mistake for Farscape.
Which is weird because I was thinking a couple days ago about this podcast and how we also kind of took a little while to hit our stride.
Sure.
And quality-wise and structure-wise, but I don't know, would you recommend that people start our podcast by listening to the recap?
I mean, that is entirely dependent on how they want to watch Farscape.
Yeah. If they're watching it with us, then they can just start from episode 1 and suffer the rest being awkward for a while.
Sure.
And then it gets great.
Sure.
And then it's the best Farscape podcast. No, it gets amazing. you don't know. But with Farscape, I think we should, for season 1, if you're watching this for the first time and you don't want to watch every episode and you're not crazy like us and you watch every episode of everything, you should watch the certain episodes that we pointed out in our recap.
We broke it down.
And for season 2, I'm going to go ahead and say this because I know more about where this season goes and I know that it gets better from here. You watch Mind the Baby and you watch whatever we're watching next week. Mm-hmm. You don't watch 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, but here's the thing, is in that range you had Crackers Don't Matter and you had The Way We Weren't, which...
watch those two.
You should watch those two.
Okay.
But it's a really odd pair because you hit episode 4, Crackers Don't Matter, and you're like, okay, here we go. Season's starting. It's kicking into gear. The Way We Weren't. Yes, this show's going on. And then
that's what I'm saying.
3 in a row that's like, ooh.
3 stinkers.
Yeah.
Well, lower levels. That's not... So then, if you're doing perfect order, then keep those 2, and then go to whatever's next, because supposedly we are beyond poor Farscape episodes.
Right. From what I understand now, we're going to hit it. Although... So the next 2 episodes we're watching,
segue?
I've heard one of them's really fun.
Okay.
And one of them is infamously not fun.
Oh no.
Or just infamously stupid. And those episodes are... First one we're watching is season 2, episode 9, Out of Their Minds. When Moya is attacked by Halos 1, the crew... Which, whatever that is. The crew discovers that they have all swapped minds.
Ooh.
Zan, on a diplomatic mission, is the only one unaffected.
That is... the most classic multi-person plot, and I'm excited.
Yes. I've seen a short clip from this episode, and the way that they sort out who's who is they have, little necklaces around their neck with pictures of who is inside the body.
Oh, that's amazing!
Just to give you a teaser of how silly this episode's going to be.
I'm so excited.
And then the second one is called My 3 Crichtons, which I've heard is...
but it's a good title.
It's episode 10 of season 2. And it goes, a mysterious energy sphere implants itself inside Moya and envelops Crichton. When Aaron fires upon it, it ejects not 1, but 3 Crichtons. Oh
my god. Oh, dude, it's the... I'm just going to keep comparing things to Buffy. It's the Buffy thing with 2 Xanders.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What was that one called?
It's not the Zeppo?
No, it's not the Zeppo.
I
don't remember what it's called. That episode was kind of fun, though.
Yeah, it was.
This one I've heard is not fun. Because it ejects... a primitive caveman Crichton, normal Crichton, and super evolved space Crichton.
Oh, that's kind of cool though. That's kind of interesting.
We'll see.
I'm excited. I love fun Farscape. I don't even care about I'll take serious Farscape and I'll take fun Farscape. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a fun time.
And then after next week, we get our first three-parter.
Three-parter,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people say is a great one.
Yeah.
Some hot stuff. Thank you to you.
Thank you.
Thank you to you. Thank you to you. I'm pointing to Magellan, I'm pointing to the mic, because the mic is you, the listener. For listening to ScapeChatz episode 16, my name is Alan, and I've been with Magellan. You can follow us on social media.
Yes.
I'm at twitter.com/Alan Ibrahim. That's Alan with an E. Ibrahim spelled IBRAHIM. Magellan's at Just a Fluke. That's JUSTAPFLUKE.
Yes.
You can email us questions, comments, feedback at ScapeChatz with a Z @gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is where this is hosted currently. youtube.com/user/popmodernplays, where we also do a fun Let's Play show that I do with Magellan's brother Xander, and sometimes him. And you can follow Magellan's hilarious webcomic called The Platonic Solids at theplatonicsolidscomic.tumblr.com. This has been ScapeChatz, somewhere in the universe.